So we're going to do some mixing today. So this song was posted on one of the forums, and I offered my services and said, hey, if I can make a video of this, would you let me mix it? So I'm going to mix this song with you watching me, and hopefully you get something out of it. You might learn something, you might not, but I'll try and make it entertaining if I can. So the reason I'm using Ableton for this is a couple of reasons. Usually I'm a Pro Tools user when it comes to mixing and mixing other people's work, but I just felt that more people actually have access to Ableton. I want to debunk that myth that Ableton's not good enough to mix and master on, because I believe it is. However, in saying that, I find Ableton's limiter to be the most horrible limiter I've ever heard. It's so bad. We won't be using that. We'll be using some third-party software, but I think on the whole, we're going to try and get away with doing everything in the box with Ableton plugin. Let's have a listen to the original song. This is the original song that was posted. Yeah, so some good stuff in there. And really, to be honest, it's not a horrible mix at all. You could probably get away with just a couple of EQ moves just to improve this mix. But we're going to do it properly. So, just a couple of things that I've done might be of interest. I have a few key assignments, just 4 to be exact. The first one's for my talkback, but these ones here are interesting. 2, 3, and 4. So every time I push the 2 key, the 3 key, or the 4 key, it's going to do something. What it's going to do is it's going to hit the solo button on its corresponding solo button, essentially. So number 2, number 3, number 4. And what that does is, because these tracks are disabled, they're not going to play when I'm pushing play, but if I push solo, it overrides that. So this is a good way of A-Bing between the reference tracks and your track, and reference tracks between each other. So that's one thing I've done. Another thing I've done is, when I grouped all the drums together, there was some MIDI associated with the project. So the project's in 7/8 and it's at 115 BPM. So at bar 15, the MIDI started. So I've lined the MIDI up in the same spot that was in the project file. And the project file had Superior Drummer on it. Now, I don't have Superior Drummer on the Windows machine, but on the Mac machine I do. But because I don't have it on the Windows machine, I wasn't able to tell what drums he was using. So I've taken the liberty, for the moment, of loading up a Metal Foundry. And in this kind of prog rock genre, I really like this Texas Metal preset. Makes everything really clicky. Really good for cutting through the mix when there's lots of guitars. That MIDI file is feeding Superior Drummer, which is actually on this channel called Kick Drum. I know it's a bit confusing, but there's a reason why I do it this way. These are all routed in Superior Drummer to come out of individual channels. So if you come in to the mixer, you can see how these are coming out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That corresponds with this section here: 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And what that's enabling me to do is to have each individual drum hit in its own channel. Well, it's not individual drum hits, it's a grouping of hits. One of the issues I have, it's not an issue as such, it's just a bit of a constraint that I have, is I only have a small amount of memory in my computer, and this is taking up a big chunk of it. So very, very early on, we're going to decide on a drum sound, and we're going to bounce these to these tracks. We're going to print them, and it's going to be permanent. And from then, we can do individual processing and make them sound the way we need to. So that's for a later video. For now, all I want to do is get levels to where I think are appropriate. Now, I'm a very top-down approach kind of guy. What I like to do is have a mastering chain already on. This doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the mastering chain that I end up with, but it's something that everything's going to feed through. Actually, that reminds me, these reference tracks, this is a good little trick that I don't see being used very often. When you've got a reference track, you don't want your reference track to go through your master, because then it goes through your mastering chain, and it's making, it's affecting what you're listening to. It's wrong. It's not a reference track anymore. So a little trick you can do in Ableton, if you set this one, usually this would be set to master like so, but if you set this so that it says external out and then point it to your speakers, so for mine it's only 1 and 2, they'll actually bypass your master chain. So every time I push the key 2 on here, it's going to come straight out the speakers. It's going to miss the mastering chain altogether. Sorry, that's just a bit of an aside, something really helpful. You may have noticed that I have a very Australian accent because I'm very Australian, and because of that, I've decided on 2 reference tracks I'm going to use from 2 Australian bands, prog rock bands, one called Dead Letter Circus and the other one down here from Carnival. And we'll just have a quick listen to what they sound like, and then I'm going to compare them to what the original sounds like, and I'll just switch between them and you'll just see what the difference is. One of the main things that comes out is the snare in the original is really non-existent. But these snares are tough, you know, and that's what we want. We want tough. So that's what we're going for. So now I'm just going to bring the level up on everything individually. The first things I'm going to do is I'm going to do the kick drum and the bass. They're the 2 that are going to have to live together. And I'm going to do a little trick. Just watch this for a bit of fun and frivolity. I'm going to bring a metering, just the solo. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the kick in. I'm going to hit the kick around about -5. I'm going to adjust this trim so it hits around -5, or actually -7, around -7. And then what I'm going to do is bring in the bass, and what I want to happen is every time the bass hits, I want the bass and the kick at the same time to hit this 0 mark. Now, it's just a little bit of a trick that if you can get that to happen, if you can do that, essentially the theory behind this is, let's pretend the second track wasn't a bass. So let's pretend that second track was another kick drum, and you had 2 kick drums hitting at the same time. Well, a kick drum plus a kick drum equals the amplitude of 2 kick drums. You're doubling the amplitude. Quickly bring the kick up to around -7. Then I'm going to bring the bass into -7, and that, well, I'm going to bring the kick up to the level that I want, and then I'm going to trim it so that it's at -7. And then I'm going to bring the bass in. It's going to hit at 0, and we'll be in good shape. Solid. All good, that's close enough for rock and roll. Okay. Now I'm going to bring the rest of the levels up around that, so that, you know, it's reasonable. But, in fact, first, let's put our mastering chain on before I forget. The limiter I'm going to use, I've forgotten to put it in the limiter section, is actually in dynamics. I'm just going to use this one for now. I'm not going to touch this gain knob until I want to compare to my reference tracks, so I'll do that last. But for the rest of them, let's bring in the EQ and a glue compressor. Just for now. What I like to do with my mastering chain is I like to have a little bit of mid-side action happening. I always find around this area, it's around about 300 to 400 mark, is a real honky, horrible resonance that I get. So I like to knock that down at the start. I also like to darken. This is all affecting the mid. Now if I switch it to sides, I'm going to knock everything down from around about 250 hertz and make sure that number 6 is on a shelf. Oops, wrong shelf, Garen. Just like that. So then now you have the sides brightened up, you have the mid darkened up a little, you have that horrible resonance taken out, there's no low end information in the sides, and there's a bit of a notch here around about 30 hertz. We don't really want anything from 30 hertz down. The glue compressor, I'm going to have a ratio of 2, automatic release, a reasonably fast attack, and I want that needle to be hitting around about 1 or 2 decibels of gain reduction. I'm not going to make that gain reduction back up. I'm going to let FabFilter do that for me. I'll start bringing up all instruments now, hopefully in the order of importance. There's a lot of dynamic range here. In fact, that area right there is a bit concerning. Let's have a look at you, Mr. Waveform. Okay. The good news is that looks to me like analog clipping, not digital clipping. That's good news. I don't have to do any repair work there. But the dynamic range is insane. Now there's 2 things that I can do here. I can use serial compression, which I will do, and I'll show you in a later video. But that's, I mean, you can see in the outro, that's really quiet. And you can see that how loud this is. That's a massive reduction in gain there. That's just huge. So automation will be our friend when we get to here and probably even here. And serial compression will fix these middle bits. So we can cheat a little. I'll continue on. So what I'm trying to do here with the guitars is if I pan these hard left and hard right, get a good image on the sides going with the guitars, it leaves room in the middle for the bass kick and vocals and snare. There's a bit of gap there in the guitars. We'll fix that too. Don't know why that's panned there. Okay, I think we're in good shape. We're getting close. Not sure what I'm going to do with that synth yet. Really, it's fighting with the vocals in a way that I don't like. I really need to widen it, so I might show you a little trick later on to get those out and to the sides and away from the vocal. Let's work on some of these. Those toms are way too weak. We've got a little trick that fixes that too. Okay, so let's see where we're at. I think we're in pretty good shape. It's not perfect. It's not 100%. It's going to change. But it's closer than we were a few minutes ago. Let's bring our limiter up. This could get loud. Watch your ears. Turn your volume down. Okay, now we're going to compare that to the reference tracks and then the original. See where we've got to go. See what work we've got to do. The reference track. That second reference track is good, but it has some quiet sections. Alright, so we've got a lot of work to do, but levels aren't horrible. They could be better, but it's a good starting point. We can do a little bit more with some panning. Oh, there's a piano. Didn't see the piano here. There's some nice little touches in this song. Alright, so I have to make a decision on where to put that too. So we've got piano and synth. They're all fighting for places. The guitars are pretty okay out on the sides. The intro is okay in the middle. So there's no other bass happening around that time. The rhythm guitars are good. Clean guitars. I've got a little bit of a plan for this last section here, just to give it a little bit more interest with these guitars, for this, which I'll show you a bit later. The backing vocals, let's have a quick listen. Like sheep, our world is crumbling beneath. The truth is all that sets us free. The synth is so obnoxious. You gotta go, son. Okay, I think I'll leave it there. So we've got a reasonably good mix. I've got a good idea of some things that we need to fix and start working on. So I think I'll leave it there. Now, comment, like, subscribe, tell me what you think needs to be done. I've got a fair idea. And I'll see you in the next video.